this is Aurora, and I'm very excited to announce today that I have an interview for you with Sean Dustin. Check out his podcast called Nowhere to Go But Up Now. Very inspiring interviews he has there, and his work is just very incredible, very raw, genuine, and he puts so much love and work into it and has incredible guests with crazy good, interesting knowledge that it will blow your mind or really touch your heart at times. We started talking and decided to create a series for you. We will come up with a title soon, where we talk about abuse. Both Sean and I have been abusive in our past with our partners, not physically abusive, but emotionally and mentally. And we want to talk about it, be open about it, and give people a platform where they can share their experiences, their journey, but also, just for people who want to understand what is going on when a person is behaving aggressively, emotionally or mentally. So enjoy this conversation. It will be the first one of many, hopefully. And this is going to be an awesome project here just for you. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
I'm a formerly abusive person. It's taken me a long time to be able to say that without like, it was really hard for me to get that out, at a certain point in my life, maybe about a year ago up to then, it's something that I've done throughout all of my relationships. I've had 5 that have failed so far from the time I would say 18 till 40. My last one was 2.5 years ago. So maybe 45, 44. So it's a long list and a long period of abusive type of behavior. Now, I'm not proud of it. And I think that both of us can agree here that, the reason that we're doing this isn't to brag or to, glorify in any way whatsoever, our behavior. I'm speaking for myself, and I'm pretty sure that, Aurora, you feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be very verbally abusive, emotionally abusive. I was never really a physically abusive person, although I did have bullying kind of behavior where I would block doorways or keep the door shut from opening. I've, shoved my significant other before, or would purposely get in the way and would bump them. Just all the kind of things that you would expect from somebody who was immature, honestly, and not very emotionally intelligent. Not, when I didn't get my way is usually when it would rear its ugly head.
Yeah.
And in order for me to bend them to my will, I would use intimidation and, stuff like that. When I would feel like, when I would get so angry to the point where I'd want to hit them, I knew that I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I'd get in trouble. It's not because I didn't want to or didn't think about doing it. It's, I knew I would get in trouble and go to jail. So that was a greater deterrent than just it not being the right thing to do. Right? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
And so I would do other things that I knew that would hurt him. I would attack their issues. If you were overweight, I would attack you there. if you had some sort of other thing that I knew that was that you didn't, I don't know. You get what I'm saying. I was just a mean person.
Yeah.
And it was because I wasn't happy with me.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't happy with the person that I was inside. I wasn't, if I was attacking, somebody for their weight, what I'd figured out post was I struggle with weight. So it wasn't really them that I was attacking. It was me that I was attacking and projecting it onto them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that, there was some of that tied in there. And then there was just some fear. A lot of fear goes into when you're afraid of somebody losing you, then you try to control them, or you losing them
Mm-hmm.
because of the behaviors that I created.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, there was a lot of that was involved in how I was. And, I often say that, and I don't condone hitting anybody, but when somebody hits you or, may physically hurt you, that goes away in a couple of days. The scar or the bruise, whatever it is, that goes away. And yeah, you're pissed at them, but that's about where it ends, right?
Mm.
When you attack somebody emotionally or verbally and start playing on their issues and attacking who they are at the fabric, that doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
That stays for a long time sometimes, and sometimes it stays forever.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, when I think about what I've done and my behavior, I'm worse than somebody that I was worse than somebody that physically abused somebody, because the lasting impacts of what I did lasted far beyond probably the person that physically abused somebody. Now that may be the wrong way to look at it. I don't know. I'm not a professional, and I'm not giving professional advice here at all. I'm just talking about my own personal experience, my own behavior, and how I dealt with it, and how it impacted me and the people around me.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing all this. And one thing I want to add before I start opening up about my stuff is, when it comes to physical abuse, or let's say it a different way, emotional abuse, verbal abuse is very destructive and aggressive. But when it comes to physical abuse, it also leaves scars, like not visibly, but to then fear your partner, because men are usually always stronger than the woman, to then suddenly have that fear from the physical pain from your partner, where you want to be open and vulnerable physically, is intense and really, really hard to get out of your system. So I think it's both pretty much the same, and it's good that you only did the emotional part, but the physical part is very deeply scarring as well, from my experience.
And and see that they're like, I don't know that side of it. So I mean, maybe I may be even speaking out of context there, or since I don't have that perspective, maybe I shouldn't comment and say that one's worse than the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's just that I can speak from experience when it comes to that. And I'm glad to know that you only engaged in one part of abuse and not both. Because the physical abuse goes far too. And so I will talk about myself a little bit now, and what behavior I brought to light, or however you want to call it. First thing that comes to mind is feeling deeply insecure and being very, very controlling of the other person, like never trusting, always questioning, nagging, wanting to be one step ahead of them, which is, if it's a good guy who has good intentions, like kind of holy shit, like I don't want to get in trouble with that girl. I love her, but this side is kind of really scary. And then the silent treatment. Yeah, when something was not going my way, to just not answer the phone, to ghost people and to be completely gone, and them not knowing what they did wrong because I never would communicate it. I was just behaving strangely and punishing the other person emotionally. And then also the hot and cold games. So whenever I felt like the person wants to be very close and intimate, I would show the cold shoulder and wait for them to cool off again, and then make them dependent on me again. And whenever they come back, show the cold shoulder again. And now looking back, I noticed that it's all very subtle and people can't really put a finger on it, yet they feel what's going on, but they can't really call me out on it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, you drive the other person crazy and you blame them for stuff that they're doing, yet you are the one who should be called out on something. So, see, I have even difficulties to put it into words, but I know that's something I was
like, yeah, that sounds a little like gaslighting.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes.
And yeah. I remember doing stuff like that where I would start arguments for no reason.
Oh, just for the fun of it. Just to see that person blow up.
Yeah. And I would hate it when it got done to me. And
yes. Yeah. And then to have that kind of friction would also mean, oh, that person is 100% focused on me now and not looking at other women, because we're having that fight now and it's very intense energy. So having a fight to distract from everything outside, just to have the attention of the other person.
Yeah, that's pretty calculating.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. It's like, it makes me feel very bad looking back, but I think that's what we do at times when we feel powerless or insecure and just, so scared to lose the other person, because they might be seeing what is inside of us and it's not beautiful what we have inside of us, what we think we see, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what do you, like, for you, what did you think that like, what did you tie that to? That, what were you afraid of? What were you, like, what were your insecurities about? Like, what does that look like?
I think I was deeply ashamed of my behavior every time I engaged in it. And I was very insecure about other women who always, in my mind, seemed to have it all together and have the perfect life and being perfectly functioning individuals. And I was always more of a dreamer, or didn't want to get caught in a job too long, and kind of a free spirit, but too insecure about it, not okay about it. So every time I had a partner and there was a female around who would be structured and well behaved and everything, I would think, what, I'm not even worth of this guy. And then create all that drama to see, well, but maybe he loves me. And then he's going to stick around. And if not, well, I'm going to go over to the next person. And so deep rooted insecurity about who I am, who I was in society, I think.
So is it, when you say like a free spirit, when I think of that, I think of like, someone who's not very responsible, isn't like goal driven, like has a retirement like mapped out. I think of my ex when I think of this. She had the house, the job, the car, all of the things, the 850 credit score, all of these things that are earmarks in our society of what, a successful person looks like on paper. Right. And I feel I can totally understand where you're coming from, because I mean, I always felt like I was, because I went to prison and I'm not as far along as the people that, I went to high school with, they're all on that track.
Yeah.
And like here I am, like still, treading water, trying to figure out how to get into the boat. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that insecurity tends to have like a self-fulfilling prophecy that's attached to it, because when you run around, feeling that way about yourself and then trying to control everything around us and like who our partner, talks to and, let's not go over here to, that person may, if you talk to that guy, he's got it all together. Maybe you'll start thinking that, I'm not worth it.
Yes.
Like now I need to be looking up here and versus, slumming it down here with this dude.
Yeah, exactly. And then what also didn't help is that I grew up in a family where really in German you say through the bank. So through the entire family, the guys were always the dominant, aggressive go-getters. And the women were always raising the children, cooking and getting everything ready for the man to come home. So early on, I observed that kind of, those power games. And it made me so incredibly angry. So I think growing up, being in puberty and then in my 20s, I had it in the back of my mind that I will never be dominated by a guy like my mom and grandmother was. Like, no one is ever going to fucking tell me what I'm going to do because I'm the boss. So, and then having those two things united inside of my chest made it very confusing for people to get to know me, because on one side, I am that girl who cooks for you and who waits for you at home. But the next day, I might be the other chick who's like, well, I'm going to go fucking drink with my girls and I'm not going to answer my phone and you're going to see what you're going to do with your life, right? And so total mind fuck.
Yeah. That's I can see the picture that you were painting there.
Yeah. A messy one.
Well, I mean, a lot of it ties back to how we were raised and, what our life was like and our upbringing was like and, what our influences were at that particular time in our lives. Right. For myself, I can say that my father and I didn't witness any of this. I was told a lot of the stories that, from him and my mom's marriage and the abuse that took place there. And a lot of it was verbal and exactly the same thing that I played out, but not seen that, like, how did I end up repeating it, which is crazy. Right. And so I must have seen something, or unless it's just, it transfers through the DNA, genetically.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I know I was really angry when I was growing up because my parents got a divorce, and then they used me they used me as like a pawn to get back at each other. Right. And I would go to my dad's on the weekends, and, my grandparents would be, calling my mom a bitch and she's all these things and all these bad things. And like, that's all they would do the whole time. And then when I would come home, I would say the same thing to my mom. I would be furious that I was being dropped off. And then as soon as the door would shut and my dad was gone, and I'd, cry furiously and I hate you. You're such a bitch and da 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 da. And I would bring all that back on her. Right.
Yeah.
And so for a kid, that was, a lot to deal with. And then so I would just act out, in school and, in social situations. And I was a bully in grade school too.
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff was starting really young.
Mm-hmm. Well, because how old were you when your parents divorced?
5.
Ah, shit. Yeah. And of course, like your baby brain, like downloads everything without questioning. Yeah. You see stuff and you think, well, that's reality. That's how things are supposed to be. And the stuff that is ugly and not so nice, I feel the younger the children are, the more they live in denial of it, because you can't, your parents are your heroes. They are giving you shelter, food, and the love they can give. So in our mind, in our children brain's mind, it's not possible for them to be evil. So I think that's what I did. What happened in my brain is that it was okay to treat people like that because this is what I downloaded. This is what is okay because my daddy is awesome, right? I'm never going to question him because if I was to question him, they could cut me out of the family and let me die. So it's very, very intense what a child's brain goes through when it comes to divorce. Like, I think it's still so underestimated, especially when
What was no, what I was going to say is, what was the point at which you decided, like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back that said, you know what, I've got to change? What brought you to that point?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I like that. So after a huge heartbreak, 2014, I decided to immigrate to Canada and to live on my grandma's farm here in the forest. And all of a sudden, I found myself in that forest with my thoughts and with my memories, because wherever you go, you bring yourself with, right? You bring all the bullshit that you wanted to escape with to that beautiful island or forest in my case. And I just went back to the fights that I had with my partner, and all of a sudden, like, was in Bert's perspective and saw all the stuff that I was doing that would make him mad and that would make him act out and be aggressive. Also, my mom came to join here, and living close with my mom again, I suddenly saw stuff that would totally make sense why my dad would act out back then in my childhood. And I was like, yeah, my daddy was aggressive and there's, stuff, but that behavior would totally drive me nuts too. And I would also be aggressive then and all of a sudden react like my dad. And I was like, oh my God, I'm becoming like my dad. I don't want to be that person. And so I became aware of how women can drive men nuts without it being overtly, covertly. And I was able to, with all the time and space I had here, to look back to, oh shit, did I copy and paste stuff from my mom and did this with my partners? And do I want to be doing that in the future? Hell no. And then to sit with that is so ugly. I bet you know that feeling, but you're like, oh shit, I want to call that person and apologize. No, I can't because I don't exist for them anymore. Or I want to turn back in time and I don't know. It was a couple years back now, and now I'm aware of that behavior. I'm still not the perfect, awesome person, but at least I'm aware of it now and know where it's kind of coming from. And then I can sit in stillness and not hate myself as much anymore.
Are you aware of your triggers? Have you sort of, pinpointed what those are? And if you have, what do you do now? Because I don't know, have you dated since then, since you've been there where you're at? Is anything, or has it just been you've sort of been on like this self-learning mission since you got to your location now? And
Yeah.
then just trying to figure out, you and why you did the things that you did, and what are your triggers, and how do you navigate them once they come up?
Mm-hmm. So I've been dating ever since, and what I noticed is that I do that weird thing where I name my triggers. So, for instance, I get very hangry when I don't eat enough during the day. So I call that a certain name. And every time I feel those emotions coming up and being impatient with people and everything that gets in between me and my food is like, I notice when I get to that point now and am able to kind of breathe myself out of it or laugh about it or talk about it to the people around me. And then when it comes to other triggers, so time for me is a huge thing. I'm an absolute, when it comes to being late, like with us right now, I couldn't figure out the internet thing and I knew I was going to be late and everything kind of shifts and I panic. So when a person is supposed to meet me at a certain time and they're late, holy shit. So
Oh, good to know.
it's so bad. And it is not when I sit at home and waiting for Sean to come out online. It is when I'm sitting in a restaurant or at a meeting point where there's that fear of abandonment, coming up and being like, oh, that person is not going to show up. Oh, I'm being left. I'm being replaced by another person. So all that comes up. And now when it happens, I just notice that huge anger coming up and try to see the best in the other person and try to think, oh, maybe they broke down or maybe they have a problem. Maybe I should go ask if they, but not right away, not after 5 minutes, after half an hour, because I would call after 2 minutes and be like passively aggressive, like, oh, can I help you out? Like, you're not there. So let it sit and know that instant reaction is not going to help me. Sit with it for a moment and trust that the other person is going to be there and not going to let you down. So it's kind of a self-talk and learning to be patient thing for me.
Yeah, the anxiety, triggers thoughts, which thoughts is absent. We fill in the blank with whatever narrative comes to mind, right?
Oh, and it's always worst case.
Yeah, right. And so getting out of that habit is really important, because unless you ask somebody, what you could. I mean, I've done this too. I've done this at work, not even in a relationship situation, right? Something that I screwed up at work, and I didn't say anything about it, and I worked this whole scenario up into my head of worst case and like all of the things that could have happened, and what was it, and by the time that I finished and almost probably got myself fired for no reason. I was like, oh my God, my mind just ran with this and it went from point A to point B. And like, it was just me and my thoughts, there was nobody else even involved in this.
Yeah.
And like, I whipped up this entire scenario that was unnecessary.
Yeah. yeah. And so I learned to see that as a little misbehaved child, my brain, and to just turn the volume down and sit it in a corner and look at it and know that this is all made up. This is all made up and it's going to bring me nowhere. So you better chill the fuck out now, have a glass of water. And yeah, so it's hard. It's like having to go to the gym and train a muscle that you have never worked before to do that kind of stuff. Like but it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the work that we're talking about is what they would consider shadow work,
Yeah.
which is your subconscious, habits or behaviors that take place behind the scenes when you don't even realize it. And
Yeah.
so a lot of the behaviors that are associated with and this is just my opinion. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a professional. I'm not a licensed mental health counselor. I've just, from dealing with my own self,
Yeah.
and realizing some of the messed up crap that I have done in the past, and sometimes do today, not as often, that's for sure, and it's definitely never as bad as it was.
Yeah.
Because I'm really good at nipping it, like catching it before it even, before I push send, right?
Yeah.
I'm still into the writing the text when I catch it now, before it's like I push send and it's like I can't get it back.
Shit.
But I mean, they're the behaviors that go on and they're learned over years, from the time we're kids to whatever relationship that you went into. And like the first one that I destroyed, I didn't learn anything from it. I learned what I didn't like about it.
Yeah.
And usually it was me blaming the other person. It was all their fault. If only they were this way, this wouldn't have happened, or
Oh,
whatever. Right. But that behavior just hitchhikes into the next relationship because you haven't dealt with it.
yeah.
And that underlying stuff, that that shadow behavior, is still there, and it's still present, and it's still strong as hell, and
Yeah.
waiting to unleash on the next person that it comes across, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh,
And it's
man.
embarrassing. It's embarrassing when you have to come to face with yourself
Oh, yeah. And
and
the other
how you act.
yeah. And I don't know if you experienced that too. Um, Maybe before your new partner knows that side about you, they're like, holy shit, like you seemed so confident and calm and how does like where does that come from? Like them not being able to make sense of it because we have a very confident side. We have a very calming, soothing vibe. So that's what people expect to get. And then they unwrap the package and see, holy shit. There's some explosiveness.
Yeah, I have an explanation for that. So, when doors have always opened for me, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with, but looks, you can say that, you can say looks, you can say charisma, charm, personality, whatever that is. I was always able to get into doors.
Yeah.
Staying was the hard part, or being asked to stay was the hard part, because usually you can't, if you're not authentically being you,
It's
right?
exhausting.
Right, it's exhausting, and pieces of the real you always end up coming out.
Yeah.
Right. And so I about 3 months is about the max that I can fake it, right? And then little pieces of the real me, if that's what I was trying to do,
Yeah.
would start showing, in behaviors, or like, man, certain things that I do, or my anger would pop up, or I would be passive aggressive about something, or something would show up, and you would be able to see. And a lot of the times when that would happen, like you talk about, instead of dealing with the monster, it's easier to just ghost the situation, right? And just, I'm out. I don't want to deal with you. And or it keeps you from actually getting closer to somebody because of that potential, right? You don't want anybody to be able to point that out about you. That's who you are. And so there's been times when I even got into a relationship once, and we ended up, I don't drink a whole lot, but I had drank a little bit too much that night. When I do, that's when the monster starts coming out too, and my anger starts getting released. And I started getting like, that guy started coming out. And I don't remember a whole lot about the evening, but I, was reminded about it in the morning. And she said, "Yeah, I locked myself in the bathroom because I was afraid of you." And I was like, "What?" I was like, I don't remember that. And so I was like, instead of trying to even deal with it, how I dealt with it was, well, if you're bringing that out in me, then I don't want to have you around me, because I don't want to be responsible for any of it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that dude, and I don't want him out, and I don't want him around. And if being around you brought that out, then I need to get rid of you.
Yeah.
And she was actually a really cool person. I mean, she drank a little bit too much, but I mean, other than that, I mean, she was, a really good person, nice to me, was, but I mean, that's what this creates, when you don't deal with it. And, so, I mean, the last 2 years, that's all I've been doing is really talking to people on my podcast, professionals, people, life coaches. If I'm struggling with something, I'll bring them on the show, and I'll start asking them questions, and, trying to get answers that way. And, part of it's because I'm cheap. I don't want to pay for the service. Right. And so I've used the podcast as to, like, hey, look, I'm helping promote you.
Now we know what you're doing.
I'm helping promote you, but you're helping me too, because I'm struggling with something and I need some answers.
That is so cool. I love how transparent you were there.
But it also brings the listeners on the journey as well, to my, transition, my change, my evolution. You're following not only a show and content and what I'm putting out, but you're also following me and in my journey to finding myself.
Yeah. No, that's so beautiful. That's awesome. How is it for you? Because right now you mentioned that looking back, you can see that kind of behavior. So instead of leaving the other person next time, can you imagine like telling them what you're struggling with and what makes you feel insecure? Or how can you, or is dating totally done for you and never ever again?
No. I mean, I have a girlfriend, and she lives with me. I've known her since I started this whole podcasting journey.
Yeah.
And so she's experienced some of the asshole. She's experienced a lot of my dysfunctional behavior, but she's also pretty stubborn, and is like, well, you're not going to get rid of me that fast just because you're, you don't want to deal with you. Getting rid of me is not the answer. Once you start dealing with you and figuring out you, and I'm here for you, and you know what I mean, for you to figure this out, because I see more in you than you see in you.
Yeah. That's
in that aspect.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I've always thought about, like, I'd probably be a great candidate for an open relationship, but I don't know. I'm also in a place too where like I have the show, I have my daughter, I have the nonprofit that I started that I'm trying to do. So I mean, there's a lot of things that are tied in with me
Mm-hmm.
trying to elevate myself to where I need to go. So I mean, I'm pretty selfish with my time too.
Mm-hmm.
And and I'm trying to work on not being so self-centered in that matter where I'm like I guess the word would be self-absorbed.
Mm-hmm.
Like my journey, my show, my blah, my, this is what I'm doing. And, if you don't get in the way of it.
But knowing a little bit about your history, not all of it, but a little bit, I mean, you're out there functioning, helping other people. And I'm sure you had times where you thought, oh my God, I'm going to be out of jail. I was a mess before I got to jail. Jail was not an awesome time. So what am I going to do with my life? And now you found something that doesn't even feel like work, and you bring people so much peace and joy. Of course, you're going to cling to that with all your might. Like, you're not just being a workaholic and being selfish with your time. You're out there helping people, right? So don't
Yeah.
too hard on yourself.
But one thing that I can say in as one of the big things that like I've caught myself doing, when like when I feel my temperature starting to boil, right? And let's say we're in a not like at the beginning stages of an argument, because she won't argue with me. She's like, no, you're not gonna pull that with me. She's like, I'm just gonna walk away and you can argue with yourself.
Awesome.
But I've noticed, like, I caught myself a couple of times closing the distance between us in that, like, trying to intimidate way where I've had to go, oh shit, and like back way back up.
Yeah.
Just but it's you know a 7 time, if you're trying to change something like a bad behavior or a habit or something like that, it's really difficult to just turn it off. It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
Especially if it's inlaid in you as a person and how you are.
Yeah.
And so like 7 times is about the minimum that it takes for you to fail, okay, I don't want to do this. And then you do it. Oh shit, I don't want to do this anymore. And then you do it. So about 7 times is about the minimum that you're going to try before it starts to become, oh, okay, now I'm recognizing when I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm choosing a different option.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Hopefully that helps some people out there that are listening. I know we're rounding up on 2:30, and I gotta make my way out of here. My daughter's starting soccer for the first time, and she's only 3.5 years old. So there are gonna be a bunch of littles out there.
Oh, that's
a bunch of littles out there kicking the ball.
That is so cool. Soccer for girls is just awesome. Awesome. Very good job there.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm excited about going and hanging out and watching her and doing a little recording and seeing all them little kids trying to kick at the ball.
Yeah. Oh, that's adorable. So yeah, should we wrap up here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a pretty good start. We gave you guys a lot to chew on, a lot of transparency, a lot of authenticity here.
Yes.
I don't usually hold back much when I talk about myself and the behaviors that I've had, and if anybody out there resonates with either Aurora or myself, and you want to reach out and talk, or send an email in, and maybe we'll read it on the next one about something that you've dealt with and how you've kind of navigated your way around it, if you have. And if you haven't, that's okay too. We'll talk about that as well.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. So don't hold back to reach out to Sean, and we will be back maybe next week. Maybe we do it bi-weekly, whatever we agree is best for our schedules. And
yeah, absolutely. What if they want to email you? What's your address?
So for now, I just have my Facebook account where you can reach me best. Yeah. It's public. So Aurora Eggert, Eggert. And mention in your first message that you watched that show and you want to make a comment or something. And my podcast is called the Borealis Experience. If you want to check it out, there's a group also on Facebook that you're very welcome to join. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you want to do the email route, you can email my show at nowheretogobutupnow@gmail.com. Like my show right behind me over here, Nowhere to Go But Up. That's the podcast. You can, if you want to reach me there as well, the link tree is probably the best way, and that is right behind me there, linktr.ee/Nowhere to Go But Up. That's the easiest way to connect with the show and everything and all the social media and everything where the show is. So I hope to hear from some of you out there, especially some of the guys out there, because we need to not normalize this, but make the conversation okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you ladies too, because we're not saints. Come on board. I did the first step. So yeah, if ever there's something you're not proud of and want to get off of your chest, reach out to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.